Following podcast contains spoilers for Locke and Synecdoche, New York. You have been warned.
Welcome back, everybody, to KFR News Radio. This is your boy, Benjamin Button, here alongside Miguel Magusto. How you doing, buddy?
You change it up every single time.
I do.
It's the same thing, but you change it up. I'm good. How are you?
I'm swell as a bell.
That's good. That's good. Did you enjoy a little week off there?
Man, that week was so good.
Yeah, I apologize to anyone that was expecting an episode last week, but I was busy. I got a question for you, Glenn.
Just shoot, my man.
Which movie is about oil drillers trying to destroy an asteroid headed for Earth? And I'm not even going to give you multiple choice because that one is super easy.
It's definitely Captain Phillips.
He is the captain now.
Totally Armageddon, though.
Yes, it is. So yeah, we took off last week. Apologies for that. But I had things to do, and I'm sure Glenn enjoyed time.
I did so much of nothing. It was fantastic.
That's always a good thing, so much of nothing.
Unlike you, which you had a lot to do, apparently.
I did have a lot to do. And I just didn't know where I was going to fit in the movies, because by the time I realized I had so much to do, I didn't have it. Like, it was Friday night, and we usually record these Saturday night or Sunday mornings.
Yeah, don't blame you. One of these you actually have to watch and pay attention. The other one you have to just straight up listen to and pay attention.
I had to watch my movie twice.
Oh,
And I'll get into that later. But have you seen any movies over the past 2 weeks that you want to talk about?
I mean, we both saw Endgame. You saw it in a completely different experience that I did.
Yeah, I saw it in 4DX.
Which is
why not?
pretty crazy, considering you're not that huge of a fan of Marvel films.
I figured I might as well.
It's like,
It was.
oh, you know what? I don't care that much for this genre. Let's go all out.
Yeah. I mean, I figured that was a good movie to see exactly what 4DX was about. But after about an hour, it got real old, as I was predicting.
I was about to say, you also were in a 3-hour movie, so...
Yeah, a little fun note about 4DX. They have seat rumblers that happen at inappropriate times.
Oh.
Like in the trailer, this is in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler
There's no
for
sex scenes
Endgame.
in this.
I'd be curious what they would do in sex scenes. But in the trailer, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is recording a message on his helmet. In the movie, when he hits the button to start recording, you feel a little rumble in your butt, like Robert Downey Jr. is giving you a nice hello there.
He's giving you a little finger, you know?
Yeah, it's very inappropriate times, and yeah, that's
weird.
Yeah, anything else other than Endgame?
No. We almost saw Endgame twice in the same day, but of course every theater in the world was sold out.
Yeah, so I take it you liked it?
That was actually Kira's call to see it twice in the same day.
Really?
I would have liked to wait until this weekend.
Yeah.
Or, sit on it.
I know this is going to come as a shocker to everyone involved, but I was not that big of a fan of it. It was okay. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Gasp!
Yeah.
I really liked it. I posted a status on Facebook about it saying, like, if you're a fan of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, then you will most likely love this movie.
Yeah.
I personally did. I thought there was a lot of moments where they really just brought it home, and then there's moments where they ruined it.
Yeah. I feel like they could have cut a solid 45 minutes out of it and it would have been more impactful. I feel like its length was really a detriment to it, although I know everyone under the sun is going to disagree with me on that. I love long movies, but I do not think this warranted 3 hours.
I want to say the same, maybe like 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I could, yeah. They need to cut something. There is definitely parts that are just like, why is this even in here?
Yeah.
It's not adding anything.
I think it was more for just the fans that it was that long.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that, but at the same time, I hate fan service. Like, just make a good movie. If you need to put fan service in there, you don't have confidence in your product, and which is really the problem with like the new Star Wars ones, is they're like 90% fan service.
Yeah.
And then when they try to do something even a little bit different, everyone loses their minds. So
I think I want to see it one more time before I make any huge judgments about it. But I want to say that I like Infinity War more than Endgame.
Oh, I 100% like Infinity War more than Endgame. Like, at least Infinity War, I didn't roll my eyes 1,000 times in Infinity War.
Yeah. There's also the huge thing that I feel like Infinity War as a story was better, but then there was the moments in Endgame that made Endgame so good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I have to watch it one more time.
Honestly, I know they did it for money, but if they just added like an extra hour and a half to Infinity War, I feel like it would have been better overall than splitting it up into 2 movies. But that's just me.
Again, there's the fan service again, so it's all in there.
Yeah.
But other than that, we watched Game of Thrones Sunday. It was a huge episode. I know you don't care for that either.
So I hear.
I was vastly disappointed in it. And also I liked it, but I was disappointed in where it went. But anyway, other than that, I haven't seen any other movies, I don't think, other than the ones we're going to be talking about.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I only saw 2 other movies other than Endgame.
Well, it's not a surprise. You were a busy boy.
Yeah, that just shows you how busy I was. I saw High Life, the A24 Robert Pattinson, Claire Denis movie, where he's got like a baby in space. I mean, that's what the trailer is. He's got a baby in space, and then it's all spooky and stuff. And it was okay. I was a little disappointed by it, but I did enjoy it for the most part. And then I saw The Curse of La Llorona.
Such a fun name to say.
It is a fun name to say, which is 25% of the reason why I went to see it. And then on my Facebook, I was just giving live updates to the movie because I'm sure no one really cares. Mm-hmm. And someone thought I was drunk, and I had to remind them that I don't drink. I'm just a weird dude.
There's actually a funny story about that. A coworker of mine, who's terrible at Spanish, cannot pronounce like Spanish syllables and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right, listen, buddy, if you can pronounce La Llorona to me perfectly, I will go see a movie with you. He really wanted to go see this movie with me. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like going back to Arlington because the traffic sucks. Yeah. So I don't ever feel like driving out. I'm like, if you can perfectly pronounce this movie, I will come out of my way to see it with you. La Llorona, La Lorna.
No, it's like quesadilla or tortilla. La Llorona.
And I was
La Llorona.
So I was swinging my Spanish around. La Llorona. You got to roll your tongue. Roll it.
I can't even roll my R's, but I can fake it enough.
La Llorona. But he never got close, and I never saw the movie, so it was great. It worked out.
But that movie was terrible. I wouldn't suggest it. So yeah, that's that.
Surprise.
So with that being said, let's get into our 2 movies. Let's start with your film, Locke.
Hi, love.
Hello, Katrina. I have something to say.
What's happened?
I'm not coming home.
You have a call waiting.
This is Ivan Locke.
We have a situation here. You're the man in charge of the entire operation, but you've decided you ain't gonna be there.
I'm not gonna turn back.
Hey, Dad, are you coming back?
Sean, something's happened. I need you to hold it together for me. It will be a long night.
We are facing $100 million worth of losses.
Listen, I will take care of it. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Directed by Stephen Knight, written by Stephen Knight, stars Tom Hardy, pretty much that's it, and then voiced along with Olivia Colman, Ruth Wilson, Tom Holland's in there too. There's a bunch of voices in there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But Locke is about Andrew Scott. Locke is about Ivan Locke, surprise, a dedicated family man and successful construction manager receives a phone call on the eve of the biggest challenge of his career that sets in motion a series of events that threaten his carefully cultivated existence.
Yes.
Ooh. All right. Yeah. Well, first off, as I was saying in the last podcast and a little bit here, this literally the only thing that's in this movie is Tom Hardy. And what is it, a Mercedes-Benz? I forget. Anyway, it's a car. Him in a car driving to a hospital, basically.
Yeah.
That's the whole movie, and him talking. Pretty much, it's gold. It's gold for that.
I was honestly worried because I remember it being relatively intense the first time I watched it, and knowing that essentially the whole story, the drama of it all is that he cheated on his wife and is going to the hospital to welcome his unplanned son or daughter. I don't remember if it's a boy or girl, or if they even mentioned.
I think they did. I think it's a boy. I can't remember wholeheartedly.
But I was really worried that it wasn't going to be as suspenseful going in knowing that. But then one thing I forgot is that they kind of tell you that like 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
And that the drama really just comes from, you kind of wanting him to, for lack of a better word or phrase, get his way.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job at like showing you that like he's a flawed man, but he's still a good man. Mm-hmm. He loves his family, he loves his wife and sons, but he just made this one mistake a few months ago. And just they said the baby's early, so it's not 9 months, but it's something along those lines.
Roughly along.
Yeah, and they just do a fantastic job at staying in the car but keeping it interesting. It really reminded me of like a play in a way, where the scenery doesn't change and what he's doing doesn't change, but the conversation just keeps the interest of the audience. And I have never cared more about the transportation of concrete in my entire life.
For real.
Because he's a construction manager, and in between his family drama, he's trying to make sure that this big job of a concrete pour doesn't get fucked up in the morning. And they make you care about that somehow. I don't know how they do it, but they make you care about it.
Yeah. This movie there's a lot. You got to listen to a lot because there's a lot of conversation going on. Mm-hmm. He's got four different technical conversations going on. The first conversation he has, I believe, is with who was it with? Was it?
The first call he makes is to his boss, but he doesn't get his boss. He gets his boss's wife. And then I think he calls his son after that.
It was either his house to call the wife about the cheating, but then she wasn't in, so he had to call. I think one of his one of his employees to tell him that he's not coming and that it's on him.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's basically four major conversations that happen, and. There's the wife, there's his employee that he's letting know that he's not coming in the next day, so it's all going to be him, like, running the show, because Ivan Locke is the one who runs the show because he's the construction manager. And the big thing is that he has to get all of this concrete, all the setup going for the construction of the biggest building, and I can't remember the location, but it's going to be the biggest building in that area. And he wanted to be the one to do it, even if he wasn't going to be there. So he had to call a bunch of people, his employee, his boss, and such like that, to get this thing rolling. All while holding up the drama of telling his wife he fucked up and calling the person that he fucked up and telling her he's on his way. He's going to be there for the child.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing really just, it's escalating and escalating. It's escalating, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, and it really, you're while there's 4 different conversations going on, it does it in such a way that you are with every conversation the entire way. You're not confused ever. You're not like trying to figure out which conversation's what. I mean, they're all completely different, but you understand what's going on the entire time. The dialogue that is played out really does a fantastic job at taking you from not knowing anything to knowing exactly what he knows. And I get it's just masterfully written by Stephen Knight, and one of the best examples of dialogue that I have seen in a very long time. Tom Hardy's fantastic as usual.
My man.
He keeps you captivated just while sitting and driving. Literally nothing else happens.
There's literally nothing that else.
Yeah.
The whole runtime of the movie is the runtime of him literally driving. He is driving from the construction site straight to the hospital where the child's being born, and it's like an hour and a half drive, which the movie's an hour and a half basically.
Yeah. And I don't know how you felt about this, but specifically when he's talking to his family, I felt like just from hearing how they're talking about where his sons are in reference to where the mom is, like mom's upstairs in the bathroom or what have you, I felt like without even seeing it, I knew the layout of their house.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to explain how it's done, but it's just the way they talk about it. You just feel like you've been in their house, even though you haven't. In a way, it makes you.
Well, that's the thing. He's setting the thing about this is he's setting up his whole life for you perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Throughout each scenario. So it's like even with the construction site, he's like, you got to do this at this point and this at this place, and he's laying it all out for you, and it's so well done. It's insane.
And with his house, his wife mentions that he he always drags concrete into the kitchen, so you know that where they park their car is in the back of their house or the side of their house, because he goes right into the kitchen instead of leaving his boots in the entryway or whatever. And it's just with language alone, you just know exactly what his life is, and it's incredible. All of the actors did a fantastic job. I remember the first time I watched this, I watched a behind the scenes feature, and they did as much as they could in real time. Like they had Tom Hardy driving around and using radios and cell phones, and then they would actually place the calls from the rest of the cast who were like in a conference room in the hotels, and they would perform the conversations while Tom Hardy was performing his side of it. So even though everything other than Tom Hardy is essentially voiceover, they did it live, more or less. They did it within the take. They did it like you would a normal movie, just miles apart.
And it really shows because everybody's emotions throughout these phone calls is like on point.
Yeah, it matches. Yeah, and it's just an incredible movie, really. Like you think that it's going to be boring. Even I did when I was watching. I was like, I saw the trailer, was pretty interested. Then I read that he doesn't leave the car the entire time. I was like, I mean, that's interesting, but I'm kind of curious how they're going to keep it, entertaining. And they do it. They do. They do a great job.
And then they even throw a little backstory in there when he's not on the phone about how his father was really, POS.
Yeah.
And basically was a terrible father, and that he was trying not to be a terrible father, that he was going to be there for his children no matter what, even if it's a little bastard. Yeah, man, this movie's so good. Like, I wonder how it feels like not like watching it and just listening strictly to it, like a podcast or something.
It probably would work still. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is in Tom Hardy's emotions on his face. So you would probably lose that a little bit, but it'd probably still work as like a radio play or a podcast play.
I think the only points where it would lose you is where he's talking to himself about his father.
Yeah, because he looks in the rearview mirror every time he's talking to his dad, who's dead. But I love that they did that, because it really answered the question like, well, why is he even doing this? You know,
Yeah.
it showed the kind of man he is, like why he's risking everything for this woman he doesn't even care about, won't even say I love you to her just to be nice and comfort her. He's just like, why? Every time she asks him if he loves her, he's like, why would I love you? We barely know each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of harsh, but I mean, that's better than like leading her on. And
Yeah, it's the truth.
yeah, and it's just so good.
The truth hurts,
But
man.
again, because it's more or less just him driving, it's hard to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, as far as it goes, we could really cover all the bases there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie's wonderful. I last week I did want to either pick this or Buried with Ryan Reynolds, and it's been a long time since I watched Buried.
Yeah,
and I
same
want
here.
to see how they both hold up next to each other. Not that they're anything related other than being like set in one place, but I want to see if they hold up next to each other at all.
In a way, Buried is slightly more impressive just because he's literally in a box and all you see is the dirt around him and
Yeah.
what he sees. So to keep it interesting, they really had to try more. Like at least with this, they had the reflections of lights to work with and kind of had the vehicle moving to play around with.
Yeah.
But they're both fantastic movies. I highly suggest anyone who hasn't seen this checks it out.
Well, I will. Maybe one day I'll pick Buried. Who knows? We're not down that road yet.
Yeah.
And definitely this week is not going to be Buried at all.
No.
Completely different category. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to talk about.
Yeah, same
Locke.
here. It's a fantastic movie, but you can't really talk about it much because it's just a guy driving in a car talking.
Guy driving a car.
You make one mistake, the whole world comes crashing down around you.
When will you get here?
I have to fix it.
Ivan, you're fired.
Please, please, please.
Where are you?
I was 23 years old. Run now, go!
Don't threaten me!
They say there's a twist.
It's all gone to hell.
I will do what needs to be
You
done.
lost your mind.
Stick to the
Are
plan.
you still there, Ivan? Ivan?
Hey, Dad. Are you coming home?
Let's move on to Synecdoche, New York.
I have a lot of problems.
Going through some things. I'm hurt. Am I dying? Can you tell me that?
I can't tell you.
You can't tell me?
No.
No, you can't tell me if you can't tell me.
No.
I'm lonely.
And
I'm afraid I'm gonna die.
anything else?
I don't know what's wrong with me, and I want to do something important while I'm still
That
here.
would be the time to do it, yes.
Death comes faster than you think.
The idea is to do a massive theater piece. What was this used for?
Plays.
Like theater plays?
Have I disappointed you somehow?
Everyone is disappointing. The more you know someone.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Knowing that you don't know is the most essential step to knowing, you know?
I want you to beg me on your knees for a kiss.
We need to investigate the essence of each being.
You're weirdly close to what I visualized for this character.
Glad to be weirdly close.
You smell weird.
What do I smell like?
It's like you're menstruating. I don't know.
I don't menstruate, so I don't know. I can smell like I'm menstruating.
Synecdoche or Synecdoche? I can't stand that word.
Synecdoche.
I can't.
The real town is Synecdoche, or Schenectady. Oh, Jesus Christ.
See? See?
Well, now I'm second guessing myself. It takes place in a real town.
Synecdoche.
But Synecdoche is a word that means essentially when you're talking about one thing, a part of a thing, you're talking about the whole of a thing. And when you're talking about the whole of a thing, you're talking about a part of a thing.
Which makes sense for this movie.
It does. It does. I'm trying to find... It's Schenectady is the real name.
Schenecdoche is the name of the town?
Schenectady. Schenectady, New York. All right, so Synecdoche, New York, written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, tells the story of a theater director who struggles with his work and the women in his life as he creates a life-size replica of New York City inside a warehouse as part of his new play. It stars Philip Seymour Hoffman, Catherine Keener, Tom Noonan, Michelle Williams, Jennifer Jason Leigh. I'm trying to find someone specific. Samantha Morton. There's just a whole bunch of people in this because essentially everyone has multiple people playing them.
There's a lot of people in this movie.
There is a fuck ton of people in this movie.
The huge difference between that and Locke.
Oh, yeah. So I originally saw this shortly after it came out, probably 2009, 2010. And I remember liking it, but I also did not remember a single thing that happened in it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to pick this movie. And, I should have knowing Charlie Kaufman, but it was super surreal and all over the place in a good way, in my opinion. Because the entire thing is essentially about time and how fast it moves and, life and death and essentially what...
There's a lot of themes in this movie.
Yeah, it's essentially what Philip Seymour Hoffman's play is about, which is everything. And when you're talking about everything, as the word synecdoche means, it means you're talking about something in particular. So, yeah, I had to watch this twice because the first time I watched it, I was kind of like... I was a little tired. It was kind of my fault for watching it when I was tired, but I was like, huh? What? Huh? So then I watched it again on Wednesday a second time, and honestly, I was just kind of blown away at all the small details in it. First of all, I want to talk about how the radio that he wakes up to, the very first thing you see in this movie is Philip Seymour Hoffman laying in bed on the first day of a fall, which is also my birthday, September 22nd. Oh. So that immediately got my attention because I'm conceited. But you really kind of you get that the whole thing's kind of based on time because while the radio says that it's September 22nd, like maybe 5 minutes later he's checking milk and it says October 10th and he says this is expired. So it's like little things like that show you that time isn't as straightforward as you think it is, and in a way it just kind of shows you how rapid everything goes and how everything kind of blurs together throughout life, and I thought that was great. I don't mean to be quiet during all this. Oh, it's fine.
You've got a lot more to say than I do.
Yeah.
Mainly, I'll get this in now before later. So I did watch these movies back to back, and although I was super interested in Locke and everything like that, nice to watch it a second time. Jumping into this one immediately after was a completely different jump for me, and I'll admit I wasn't 100% paying attention to it. Although I was enjoying it, I will say that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard. It's a hard movie to pay attention to.
Yeah, and also when it peanut.
Yeah, little peanut.
And also when it comes to Charlie Kaufman movies, I know you enjoy them a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
Not saying that I don't. I just that you pay attention way more than I do about his movies.
Yeah, you have to go into a Charlie Kaufman movie pretty much on speed and paying attention to every little detail. Mm-hmm. Not that I do speed before I watch them, but
I will absolutely let you take the reins. I will say I do want to watch it again to pay attention to all the details.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it more the second time.
Yeah.
Especially, like really, the one thing I really got out of it the second time, which kind of sums up the entire movie, is the radio the caller on the radio that he's listening to when he wakes up sums up the entire movie. Essentially, it says she says something along the lines of, "If life were 1 year, fall would be the beginning of the end." And it starts on the first day of fall, and throughout the entire movie it seems like he's quickly dying, but really throughout his life he's slowly dying, and it's just going through his life. And in a way it's kind of funny because he's kind of paranoid and thinking he's dying, and they exaggerate like what's happening to him, like
They do that a lot.
Yeah, like there's this
It doesn't
one time
help in the first like 15 minutes. He's going to 6 different doctors for everything else in his
Oh
body.
yeah. Like it's really just kind of. It shows you like Charlie Kaufman's brand of humor, which is like really like just dark and fucked up kind of humor, and it's just so funny. Like he's there's one scene where he gets off the phone and he immediately starts having like a seizure, but it's not a real seizure. It's just kind of a funny seizure. He just starts like convulsing, but it really just looks like he's angry for a second, and then you realize he's having a seizure.
Yeah.
And then he calls 911.
What does he yell? Does he say
He
I'm
just
dying?
goes, he's like, I'm sick. I'm sick. Help.
I laughed at that. Even though I knew what was happening. I'm a terrible person.
Yeah. Then the person on the other end, it just keeps calling him ma'am. It's like, ma'am, ma'am. It's just like little things like that. It's just so funny. It's a very dry humor, but also over the top in a way. Like it doesn't play as a joke, so it's dry, but it's just so otherworldly that it's funny. And another great thing that they do is the character played by Samantha Morton, who's named Hazel. She's going to buy a house, and the house is on fire. And they're just ignoring the fact that the house is on fire. And she's always
until
like,
like the very end, she's like, also, I don't want to burn alive in this house.
yeah, but then she buys the house anyway. And just like 20 years later, the house is still on fire and it's just never brought up. It's just little shit like that. It's just so fucking funny, in my opinion. And it's just, it's so great.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in this movie too.
Yeah, I think probably the creepiest, not creepiest. One of the only bad things I have to say is Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is kind of creepy at times.
At times,
throughout the entire thing, essentially.
There you go.
Which is kind of just Charlie Kaufman's kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. I think he means well, but he has a lot of self-conscious issues, which make him come off as creepy. I don't know how to explain it, but it was a little off-putting at times where you're just like,
oh, that's weird. Like that kind of.
Yeah, like that's
okay.
weird. You can move along, sir.
You can
move
stop.
along, sir. Yeah, and it's just the one thing I didn't notice until the second time too is he builds New York City in a warehouse, and then within that warehouse is another warehouse where another New York City is built, and then within that one there's another warehouse where another New York City is built.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing about this movie. It just keeps on giving, and giving. It's like an infinite loop.
Yeah, and it's so funny. And you realize at one time that there's just like an infinite amount of actors playing everyone at all times. And it really kind of adds to the whole, like, you can't tell if it's real or if it's a dream, and it never really answers your question, but in a way I kind of like that. It makes it more open-ended, and you can kind of figure it out for yourself and talk about it.
And so, did he got a grant, right? Like, it was a grant for something?
Philip Seymour Hoffman's character?
Yeah,
he got the MacArthur grant, which is known as the Genius Grant, or at least I don't know if it's called the MacArthur grant in real life, but there is like a grant out there that is essentially called a Genius Grant. They just give it to people who they consider geniuses.
Yeah, but how much money do they give from that?
Not enough.
It seemed endless. Like
they did not give him enough money to do what he was doing, but. At least in real life, that would be the case. But I think that's just kind of like, I don't know. I think that's kind of the joke of it all, where it's just like he's.
I mean, at a certain point, I'm like, maybe these people are just doing this because they are like they've got the passion for this project, and then I'm like, yeah, but that grant had to run out eventually, and it just kept going, and then he built another play inside of the play, and it just kept going. I'm like, what is happening?
To me, that's just kind of the joke.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got it. Like, but I was like, when is this gonna end?
And it just keeps going and going, and eventually, like, the country becomes like a dystopian future, and like riots are happening, and he's just kind of ignoring everything. He's very self-centered, which I believe was on purpose that he's only really focused on himself while like there's riots happening and the world's falling apart, and he's just focusing on himself dying, which is really kind of truthful for life in general. People just kind of focus on themselves no matter what's going on around them. And it was just so... I'm really glad that I watched it twice, because I definitely, I enjoyed it the first time, but I also don't know if I quite understood it. I still don't really understand it, if I'm honest.
It's really hard. I understood it.
Yeah.
But of course, again, I'll say this, Charlie Kaufman movies, I don't jump for them. Yeah. And this one was such a Charlie Kaufman movie. It was so out there.
Yeah, I mean, this was his first film he directed.
I liked
wrote,
it.
So.
I liked it. I feel like I'm saying that I'm not liking it. I did really enjoy it, but it was tough.
Yeah, it's definitely
tough to talk about.
It's tough to talk about.
Yeah, and well, man, that sucks because we're podcasts. We're doing a podcast to talk about these movies.
But yeah, I mean, you either know Charlie Kaufman or you don't. It's really what it comes down to. I mean,
I'm not blaming you for this. It also would have helped if I did it fresh off like I was doing last week.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, that is my fault. I take full responsibility for that. But
I should have also wrote notes down. I stopped taking notes.
Yeah.
That would have helped a lot.
Yeah, I wrote notes for this, but not for Locke. But, I mean, Charlie Kaufman's movies are all weird. Just to kind of name a few that he's written, he did Being John Malkovich, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Adaptation, Anomalisa. He's just a very surreal... He's got a very surreal style. And I think probably Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is his most digestible of them. Mm-hmm. But they're all weird. Even that's weird.
Anomalisa scene, it was a pretty tame one.
Yeah, Anomalisa is pretty tame.
Except for the one scene that happens in it, but that's hell, that happened in Team America a lot.
Yeah. And that was more of a style choice. I feel like it wouldn't have been as weird if it were with people.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it was puppets that made it weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one was tame, other than the fact that other than the two main characters, everyone was played by the same person. But yeah, it's. I can't say much more about Synecdoche, New York. It's just a very crazy movie, but it's
real crazy.
If you have the attention span to actually pay attention to it, it's a great movie.
And I feel like that's a warning, not a warning, but advice is. Make sure you're paying attention when you're watching this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't go in and just be like, oh, I'm going to put this on and kind of just dick around.
Don't be like me where I'm like, okay, I'll put this on and then I can knock these movies out and then we'll do the podcast. Yeah. I was not paying full attention to it, and I should have been.
Yeah, it's all good. Worse have happened.
Yeah. How did we get that one? The movie that had so much shit happening inside of it. We talked about that less than we did Locke. How?
Because it's hard to describe. It's just one of those things that you have to see it to know how hard it is to talk about it.
I guess I'll try to conjure up some stuff. Everybody was fantastic in this. As weird as the movie was, everybody's performance was fantastic. Tom Noonan had me laughing.
Oh, Tom Noonan's great.
Who's playing Philip Seymour Hoffman's character?
I don't know if you noticed, but in the first sequence, when you think it's the same day, but it's really over the span of weeks, when he goes out to check his mail, Thomas Noonan is across the street.
Out there.
Yeah, and that's another thing I didn't like. I knew that someone was watching him while he was getting his mail, but I didn't really get that it was Thomas Noonan until the second time I watched it. And then when he comes back and says, I've never acted before, but I've been following you for several years now, it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense now. And it's just like this whole movie has little details like that. But yeah, he was hilarious. You're right.
Tom Noonan, he was hilarious. Even after his introduction, he just kept being funny. Catherine Keener, her character was a dick, but understandable a dick.
Yeah. She didn't start off that way, but she turned quickly. But that's also because the movie takes over place.
Yeah, because of the span of how fast it was going.
Yeah.
and especially since he was so kind of like into his own projects and stuff like that. Understandable, but
I love that Jennifer Jason Leigh and his daughter had German accents after they moved to Germany.
Yeah. It took me a hard minute to figure out that was Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there like, where do I know her from?
Yeah.
Oh my God, where do I know her from? And it's not like she's a hard person to figure out. I just could not remember who she was in my life or for my life. But yeah, I mean, the performances were fantastic. So the movie itself is so over the top. I mean, that's really the joke of it. And I mean, the best part of it, not in a bad way either. Cinematography was good. It was real good.
Yeah. I completely agree. It's just a really good collaboration overall. With, like you said, the cinematography was done by Frederick Elms, who is known for Patterson, which is a movie you and I saw together.
I really enjoyed that one too.
I did as well. He did Brothers, Bride Wars, Broken Flowers. He's done like a lot of small independent movies, but they always have solid cinematography in them. But yeah, it's everyone's like on their A game in this movie, and it's so surreal, so very surreal.
Holy hell! Did you see the budget for this movie?
Oh my God, do I want to? 21 million, Jesus Christ!
Look at its gross USA wise though.
Yeah, that's sad.
So budget, they made 21 million for this movie to just crank it out. Back they got $3 million. Yeah. And that's just USA, so I don't even know what else is, how much more they got.
It's probably, never mind. I was going to say it's probably broken even at this point, but it probably hasn't. Which would also explain why it took so long for the people to trust Charlie Kaufman to do a second movie.
Yeah.
You know, he had a...
What a jump, 21 to 3 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. Locke's budget was $2 million. It got back in USA 1.3, but it's probably because they advertised it. We're like, here's Tom Hardy.
Yeah,
and then
it was released at a good time.
I've been following you for 20 years, and I've learned everything about you. So hire me, and you'll see who you truly are.
I'm just a little person, one person in a sea of many.
I'm not a homosexual.
Somewhere, maybe someday.
I don't know why I make it so complicated.
That's what you do.
I hope he's through any way I can.
Somewhere, maybe
There are millions of people in the world, and none of those people is an extra. They're all leads of their own stories.
Person, and we'll go out and play.
Caden? What? When are we going to get an audience in here? It's been 17 years.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, young lady.
So, we have reached the judgment. As you know, it takes 2 votes to be a shelf boy for each film. So, Glenn, let's talk about Locke first.
That good old Locke. You know, if this movie, if it had one more person in it, just like just a quick boom transition to like another person, I would want that person to be a shelf boy.
I'm not quite sure what that means.
I want him to be the passenger in this movie. We got to come up with like a sculpture or something for a shelf boy. I wonder what he's gonna look like, just like an Oscar or something. But
well, we're gonna have the first annual Shelf Boys next year around the Oscars.
Maybe like a human body with 2 heads or something like that, instead of like the Oscar has one. It's just our faces.
So I'm not quite sure if I am gathering if you're saying Locke should be a shelf boy or
Locke's
not.
a shelf boy.
Okay. Because you said that the guy that would be a passenger would be a shelf boy, but that didn't quite answer if Locke would be a shelf boy.
The shelf boy needs to have a cameo in Locke to further produce the fact that it is a shelf boy, Mike.
Okay. You took a while to get there, but I get it now. I think this movie is a fantastic showcase in what you can do with little going on. So for that alone, it definitely deserves to be a shelf boy. It's well deserving. So Locke is a shelf boy. Let's move on to Synecdoche, New York. I love this movie. It's very strange and out there, and I will completely admit it's not for everyone, but I feel like it's enough of a spectacle where people should see it at least once. So for that, I will say yes, it deserves to be a shelf boy.
I will also say it's a shelf boy.
Ooh, there we go. We got 2 shelf boys. That's 3 consecutive episodes where we have 2 shelf boys.
So I will say the same thing. I feel like it is a spectacle enough for people should see it at least once. They should goddamn pay attention too. I did not. Even though I did not pay attention, I paid enough attention to really enjoy the movie for what it was. A Charlie Kaufman movie. Man, that's fucked up. I didn't mean it like that. But yeah, I think it was so good.
SoGood.com. So, Locke and Synecdoche, New York, both are shelf boys. That brings us to our next 2 movies for next week. Clenjamin Button. What is your film?
All right, so there's been a couple times during the last couple podcasts where I've done multiple choice to try to kind of lean you into picking a romance. So I'm finally just gonna do it.
One thing you should know about me is I will probably never pick a romance over any other movie.
And each time, the category for each other category, the movies were completely different. But the romance category always stayed the same. So, if the one time you did pick it, it was going to be the same movie the last 4 times that I've tried to get you to do it. Regardless, I honestly don't care to see this movie either, if it helps. But it is
that makes me more worried.
It is getting a lot of praise from the ladies, especially mine, who has seen it, I believe, 3 or 4 times, and really, really wants us to watch it and review it.
Ugh.
So
she's just gonna be disappointed.
I know. So what I'm gonna say is, you watch this with your wife, and I will watch this with my girlfriend, and let's try to enjoy the time together. Okay. If I could, I'd watch it with you. We'd have popcorn. I'd hold your hand. I'd cry
cut a little bit.
Absolutely. So here's the deal. To All the Boys I've Loved Before.
Ugh.
On Netflix, specifically on Netflix. Directed by Susan Johnson, written by Sofia Alvarez, and based on the novel by Jenny Han. Stars Lana Condor, Noah Centineo, and Janelle Parrish. To All the Boys I've Loved Before is about a teenage girl's secret love letters are exposed and wreak havoc on her love life. Now, it's getting a lot of praise from the ladies, so we'll see. We'll see.
More than anything, I'm just disappointed that next week's episode title is going to have such a long fucking name.
Yeah.
And you'll know why in just a second. My movie is also on Netflix. It tells the story of a courtroom frenzy ensues and sweeps 1970s America when young single mother reluctantly tips the attention of a widespread manhunt toward her longtime boyfriend, Ted Bundy.
Oh.
It is extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile.
Is this the one I think it is?
With Zac Efron.
There it is.
Yep. Lily Collins.
I'm glad you picked that. I really did want to see this.
Yeah. James Hetfield from Metallica for some reason.
Whoa! What?
Yeah, he plays an officer in it, and it's directed by Joe Berlinger, written by Elizabeth Kendall, or based on the book by Elizabeth Kendall, and written by Michael Worley. So yeah, next week's episode is going to be episode 22, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. That is a long ass title.
Or you can just label mine Tat Bilb,
and I'll do Eusif.
Perfect. There you go. Tat Bilb and Ilsif.
So next week's movies are To All the Boys I've Loved Before and Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. Both are available on Netflix. Netflix sponsor us. And you can always follow us on Instagram. We are at Keystone_film_review. Facebook, we are Keystone Film Review. Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
And that will do it until next week. Hopefully I'm not crazy busy and have to postpone again.
All right, well, let's go out for drinks. That's the end of episode 21. This episode's legal. Let's go. Mike, you can have like a Yahoo or something.
Oh, I'll get a Coke Zero.
Or Yuzu.
Designated driver's drink for free.
You can have a web browser.
All right. See you.
Bye.